Hey guys, it's Bill Bonte. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about spells and how good I think they are. Actually, I got to give props to Diph. I talk shit to him a lot, but I do think he's a decent mage. He actually posted this with his answers to this already and offered, basically asked the community if anybody wanted to do the same thing. So I have his answers covered. I haven't really looked at them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my own thoughts and then reveal his, and we can kind of compare and see how we line up. He has different opinions. I know that he really, really loves Death Hand. I don't really love that too much. But let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be kind of a long form, relaxed video. You know, you maybe put it on in the background, whatever. So let's get started. Right out the gate, we got Outburst. Outburst, God, it feels like an A tier spell. Just because it has like crazy utility, right? Some things that I'm going to be thinking about kind of as I go through this, I'm going to be talking about the mana efficiency, the damage efficiency, utility, how frequently it's utilized, how impactful it is to a battle, how hard it is to get, how expensive it is to get, how expensive it is to run, reagent costs, are reagents regularly available? So I'll be talking about kind of all that. That's all like things that I'm thinking about. I might not mention it on every spell, but that's like all being taken into consideration as I kind of go through this. Outburst is really, really good because it has extreme range. It's the farthest reaching ecumenical spell. It is really good at peeling reflects at range because it doesn't pump super hard. On a fat mage, though, it can. My fat mage hits for over 40 with Outburst, which is pretty nuts considering the mana consumption. I could pretty easily burn down a lot of like meathead footies with nothing but Outburst. Yeah, but it's just like I'm not using it until those niche scenarios come up, so I'll just go ahead and put it in B tier. It's basically like weak fireball, right? Next, it feels a little weird throwing something into S tier right away, but how can you not? It's T-Lash. When me and my friends are thinking about what spell should be cast, talking about mage combat, the kind of like running thing that we talk about is, should you just T-Lash instead? And the answer is almost always yes. There's very few scenarios in which a T-Lash is not the correct answer. It's just got great throughput. It's got great damage. It's instant damage. It's the hardest hitting non-flame strike instant cast spell. It's got decent range, right? Much better range than flame strike. The downside is, Cuprum's not available from a vendor. You can burn through it pretty quick. You also use Cuprum for your greater heals, right? So that's like the only real downside. So it hits really hard. It has a cool animation. Literally lightning comes off the guy. It's it's just an all-around fucking excellent spell. Spurt. Spurt right now is in a really good spot. I'm gonna go ahead and put Spurt in A tier. I think that Spurt has a ton of utility. You can shut down other mages entirely with it. It only costs water. It on a fat mage it hits for like 10, which is actually kind of nuts. It's your execute. It interrupts spell casting. You can use it on footies. You can basically use it on any build to get value out of it. You peel reflects with it. Because reflect is in such a good state, spurt is also in a good state. It's great. People sleep on it. A lot of people don't use spurt. Um, it's just all around really good. It's not so good that I'm going to put it in S, but it's pretty good. Next, we got Flame Strike. You let's talk about Flame Strike for a sec. Flame Strike is extremely short range. It's the hardest hitting spell in the game currently. It is really, really good for bounty hunting because you can jump people with it in town and maximize your damage. Its mana efficiency is absolute dog shit. It's one of the worst offensive spells from a mana efficiency standpoint. I noticed that if I go too hard with Flame Strike on my mounted mage, killing horses and stuff, that I'll really fast, even on a mounted mage with a ton of mana. So it's already in the line. I'll go ahead and put it in C tier. I don't think it's crazy. It's also super expensive from an ecumenical primary standpoint, so a lot of people don't even run it. Also, coal is not available at the vendor. Ah, like I kind of want to put it in D tier, but it is the hardest hitting spell in the game. Like you know what you're signing up for when you go for it, so it's kind of meh. Kind of meh. Fulminate. This is a controversial one. So benefits of Fulminate. It's one of the hardest hitting spells in the game. If you're lucky, that's the big thing. It's really heavily RNG dependent. It has a massive window of damage that you can hit like a truck, or you can hit like a 1.5 outburst. It's like it's okay, right? But sometimes it just absolutely demolishes. It scales really, really well on NPCs as well for some reason. So killing horses and stuff with it is really, really good. I'm actually not sure how that scaling works. Sometimes you'll hit a pig for like 140 damage with it, and it's just like, what? Does that pig have like negative psych? I don't know. But Fulminate is good in my eyes. I think Fulminate is really good. People hate on it for the simple fact that it is dispellable, and I get it. Uh, but when you think about it, it forces every build in the game to run Purify. If you're not running Purify, something's wrong. So it's also a really good test of skill for the opponent. Free Horse has talked about it in his Mage Guide video. He uses it as a test of skill. If he casts Fulminate and you don't have Reflect on you, or you don't um, cleanse it, that's a pretty good indicator that he can kind of get away with whatever he wants for the remainder of the fight. So it's the other thing is it has massive burst potential, and it doesn't alert horses. It doesn't alert riders to you placing it on it. So if somebody's kind of not paying attention and you ride up behind them on a horse, you fulminate their horse, it doesn't alert them. So you can fulminate, immediately go into T-Lash, T-Lash, explode their horse. If it's a low-level horse, that horse is dead, right? You can also do it to players. It's like if you've ever played WoW Arena, you understand that consistent damage is easy to deal with, right? Non If you're not pressuring the opponent, it's easy for them to just adapt and deal with it, right? So if you're T-lashing on repeat, it's easy for somebody to just continuously bandage on repeat to just kind of counteract that damage. But Fulminate lines up a massive burst window. You place it on the opponent. If you then go into a T-lash and you sync those up, that is a huge, huge amount of damage that they now have to deal with. Um, Going into a corrupt or something, following it up strong, it puts them on the back foot immediately. Doesn't matter what their build is, you're going to hit them super fucking hard with that combo. So, um, it's not S tier because it's cleansable and there are definitely some downsides to it, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in A tier. I think it's pretty good. Lightning. I actually weirdly had to use lightning for a pretty big fight not that long ago because I ran out of calamine. The reagent cost on this is just one cuprum, which is really interesting. And the damage is between an outburst and a T-lash. So it's like 1.5 outbursts, or like 75% of a T-lash. It has a cast time that is 0.3 seconds faster than T-lash. So it's actually got higher cast throughput, right? The damage is still lower. If you're looking at like raw DPS, the damage is lower than T-Lash, right? That's why everybody just uses T-Lash. But from a speed and efficiency standpoint, maybe you don't have enough time to get a T-Lash out. Maybe you're constantly getting pelted by arrows and you just need that like 0.3 seconds actually matters. I think people are sleeping on Lightning. Lightning actually is decent, but I would say it's like spectacularly middle of the road. Like, it's very underutilized because T-Lash is better in every way, basically, except for casting speed and reagent cost. But it's a good alternative. Maybe you don't want to put 62 points into Ecumenical and you want to go for just whatever Lightning is. That is an option. As more spell schools come out, it might get even better because now you got to fit Elementalism, and now you got to fit this in, now you got to fit this into your build, right? So you're kind of getting more stretched thin on your primary points. So Lightning might look better and better as time goes on. Who knows, right? Purify. My gut, like my instinct says just go S tier, but it's I don't think it's at that point yet, right? Um, there's a lot of utility. The reagent cost is cheap. The casting is cheap. I think it's actually cheaper than Lesser Heal. I could I could be wrong. No, it's not. I can't remember. But um, cleansing off debuffs is really good. Getting rid of atrophies, getting rid of fulminates, corrupts. Um, generally just a good spell. Lots of utility. Ecumenical is by far the most stacked um, spell school, and I think it will be for a while. Um, but it's not something that you utilize every fight, right? When I'm thinking of S tier stuff, I'm thinking of something that is useful in every fight or completely dominates the battlefield. So it's either something that I'm gonna push every single fight, or something that will completely win the fight for me if I use it successfully. That's kind of what I think of S tier. And Purify, if I'm fighting a footy, I'm never pushing the button. So I'll put it in A tier. I think it's good. I don't think it's S tier good. Greater heal. Greater heal. You know, it's fucking it's fucking white bread, right? That and lesser heal. I guess I can kind of talk about them at the same time. Um, it's a little annoying that the game went live with literally small heal, big heal as as the way to heal your team and be a support character. Um, it's really fucking boring, but they're just it's the best we got. It's currently I think they're both currently S tier, right? Um, it's when I was newer, and I'm guilty of telling this to people as well. I used to tell people, don't ever use Greater Heal. Don't use it. It's less mana efficient, costs a cuprum, and your throughput is very similar with Lesser Heal. Well, you know, I've been playing a lot of Fat Mage, and that's not true anymore. Your intellect scales, your throughput on Greater Heal is actually way higher. You can also hold the greater heals for more effect. Greater heals in a team fight, you have a lot more impact. You land a heal for 60, 70, 80 health on your teammate. That completely swings the battle, right? Lesser heal, um, you can make the argument that lesser heal gives you the ability to miss with less punishment, so you have more chances to succeed. Um, but it's kind of like a trickle heal, and people can burst through it pretty quick. Both of them are really good. Both of them have their situations. You can chamber a greater heal for your horse when you're riding through a sticky situation, right? Say you need to ride past 3 guys with longbows. I often will put a greater heal in my pocket so that as soon as I get hit by the first arrow, boom, greater heal on my horse head. Boom, an extra 60 health. Oh, now I can take another 2 arrows, right, before my horse flops. Greater heal is excellent. Lesser heal is excellent. They're both just S tier. Like they're the only heals in the game. Earthquake. Earthquake is fucking F tier. Like, do we really need to talk about it? F tier. Is there anything below F tier that I could fucking put it in? It is so bad, and it's annoying me that it's not locking in place into the right spot. Reagent cost is terrible, right? Only available in weird spots. Drops in Necro Dungeon, drops in Satyr Dungeon. People gouge on the market for anybody that thinks, oh, I might cast this once in a while. The range is pathetic. It doesn't do its knockdown yet. The damage is pathetic and requires 100 ecumenical. Absolute dog shit of a spell. Costs 100 gold. Generally on the market, and the only reason is people want to have a complete spell book. Fucking trash spell. Maybe when they add knockdowns, it'll be better. That's like the whole purpose of it, but absolute garbage. The only cool thing about this spell is the name and the animation when you cast it. There's no animation on the target, just the hand thing where your character like creates rock. It looks cool, but that's it. That's the only redeeming factor, and that's not enough to get you out of F. Sorry, Earthquake, you fucking suck. Magic Reflect, going from terrible to greatness. Magic Reflect is S tier. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows how it works. It allows you to reflect a spell. It can completely fuck over Dex mages because they don't have enough mana to deal with it if you're on your footy. It It's just generally amazing at this point. It's too good. Um, could use a nerf. I don't really know how to nerf it without going back to the way it was. But it is what it is right now. It's totally worth the 50 points in ecumenical. It is a little bit mana inefficient, right? So the only one downside is you can't just like reflect your horse, reflect your horse, reflect your horse to like keep it alive, because you'll You eventually need to heal. But that's not really a downside. Like, it's just generally really good. Reagents are available at the vendor. Like, super, super good spell. Default comes in your book. Everybody has it. Like, monster spell. Super good. Mind Blast. Mind Blast is like weird. Um, a lot of people don't realize Mind Blast has a skill requirement of 10 ecumenical, which is basically free. Um, it does the difference in the target's strength and intellect as damage, and hits for like 32 maximum damage, I think, or something like that. I never really use it, but I see people use it. It's decent on like an owl footy. It can get you like some cheeky kills. The reagent cost is cheap. The spell mana cost is inefficient for the damage that it does, but for 10 primary points being this like weird one-off thing that most people don't realize they can even use, it's like an average spell. It's like, I don't know. Is it better than lightning? It's definitely not better than lightning, but is it worse than lightning? It's definitely worse than flame strike. Yeah, we'll go ahead and put it. Go ahead and put it in D tier. I think it's a D tier spell. Like, well, it's got more utility than lightning. We'll put lightning in D tier just because it's so outclassed by uh, T-Lash, and we'll put this guy in C tier. It's an average spell. It's got more utility than lightning. It's not on the same tier as lightning. That's the main hang up I have right there. All right, corrupt. Let's see. You can see my gut reaction is to put it into like A tier. I put it in the same category as Purify. It's not something that I'm using every fight, every encounter. The way I think about it is, should I be T-lashing? Very likely the answer is yes. Unless I'm heal botting and I'm actively trying to conserve mana to be able to continuously do greater heals on my team, I'm not corrupting. I will weave in corrupts occasionally. Let's say their target is getting a lot of heals. It's really, you can target call with this, right? So I tend to shot call a lot. And as a shot caller, corrupt is great because I can just scream a target, corrupt them, and I know they're not going to get heals, at least for a minute. Allows my team to focus them down. So it's a really good spell. It interrupts spell casting. It's like infuriating getting corrupt cast on you as a mage. So sometimes I'll put it on the mage's backline just to harass. Dex mages don't really have a problem dealing with it. Humans don't have a problem dealing with it. But mounted mages do. Because of the delayed spell casting time, you have to line up your purify like exactly with the tick damage by spamming it basically to get it off of you. So it is really good against mounted mages. Um, but like I said, it's not something that I push every fight. It's not a key that I'm pushing. It's not a key that I'm winning the fight with, right? It's good. It's not that good. Um, okay, that's all the ecumenical. God, ecumenical is fucking stacked. Like, look at that. 8 spells in S tier and A tier. Nuts. All right. Spiritism. So, admittedly, I don't have a ton of experience using the portals and stuff like that. Our sister guild, Red Priest, was founded as a 100% spiritist only guild. They're no longer like that, but most of their members, in fact, like all of them, still have a character that has portals. So I have a lot of experience, playing with people that use it. I understand how everything works. I've watched a billion Discord streams of people like PvPing, and um, I have spiritism on a couple characters up to like level 90 for projectile and stuff like that. So this is kind of where my experience is coming from. I don't have a ton of experience doing the I don't even know if you can call it PvP, but like the spiritism PvP. Resurrect. Let's talk about Resurrect. Resurrect is primarily used out of combat. It's used after the fight. Um, It's used in situations where your team doesn't have a priest nearby, no strongholds that you can res at, no towns you can res at, and a situation in which your partner wants to come back into that situation. Sometimes people think of death as a blessing. They're like, ah, free teleport, you know? So basically, dungeons is where this comes into play a lot. And that can make or break a team. Let's say you're doing Necro Dungeon and you need around 5 people to do the boss reliably. You get through the dungeon and one of your healers dies, right? That's a big oofy. Now you can't do the boss. So Resurrect can kind of pull through in those clutch scenarios. Um, is it like gonna win a fight? No. Is it gonna like dramatically change your life? No. Like it's better. It's better than not having it. It's like one of the only reason I'm putting it in B tier and not C or lower is because it's one of the few spiritism spells that like you'll actually use it. Like you'll actually go ahead and get value from it. Transcendental awareness. Um, you use it to see spirits. Like, oh my god. I'm just gonna put it in D tier. It's nothing to write home about. It does enable you to use certain spiritism spells. It's just kind of the white bread of this. Um, Fuck, I can't even remember what this spell is called. Um, that's probably a good indicator it's not that good. I'll put it in D tier. Ether Momentum just got a buff, but every spiritist that I talk to, I've asked about it, and they all say the same thing. Like, it's barely a buff. It's not worth putting on you. It's almost the same as if you just ran. So wasting spirits is not worth it. It would be cool if the buff was way faster and lasted a long time, so you could kind of set up this like spiritist highway. You go into the spirit realm, you pay a spiritist like 5 gold in the real world, and he gives you a buff, and then you can ghost from Fab to Meduli in like 5 minutes. You're just like flying across the battlefield, right? Flying across the world like fast as shit. That would be cool, right? They nerfed the crap out of spiritists. They nerfed spirit scouting into the floor. The portal lore and everything is so expensive now; it's not worth it. So they got to have value from utility. Just farming spirits and making gold and stuff is not in flux is not good enough, I don't think, for a spiritist for the investment and the time and the primaries and everything that goes into it. So I'm kind of, you know, grandstanding a little bit, but like give them something really good. Like make this shit like overpowered. Make people want that buff. Make people go like out of their way to get it for travel. Like that would be super nice. Ether barrier, it's like F tier. Like who does that? Uh, Same thing with this spell. I think that's cow regeneration. Like who cares? Oh, this is the spirit one. You call spirits on them. Um, you can do it when you're alive and banish spirits, but spirit scouting's not a thing anymore. So who really cares if there's a ghost watching you? Like they can't even see you. They can see the mobs. So it's cool. You can banish from the living. Transcendental awareness is actually decent because you can remove spell reflex from friendly people without crimming. So that's like really annoying for people, but has its value there. Portal lore, if you have it, it's really good. One of the best spiritism spells, being able to go in and out of a portal, is pretty busted, right? Farm spirits, make a ton of money, travel quickly. Um, you don't need to be rezzed if another mage can make a portal for you. We've had some pretty unique utility, right? Like we use this with Necroboss to kind of circumvent one of the mechanics that I'm not going to spoil. Uh, so generally, it's like a good spell, right? Put it in A tier just because it's like it's up there, man. It's up there. It's really expensive though. It's probably not worth the money. But Expel Spirit or whatever this is called, the PvP spell that allows you to attack other spirits. Who fucking cares? We'll put it in E. Mental Projectile. Now this is where the money is. This is some people love this, some people hate it. Downsides to this spell: it's expensive, costs 3 spirits, really mana expensive, and really primary expensive. You need 90 spiritism, so you need to do one of the worst grinds in the game to get it. Right? It's not the worst grind. That's still coveted by the ritualists out there. But you have to do the stupid spiritism grind, which is expensive, right? Especially if you can't farm your own spirits. It's very expensive to do. But it is a sniper rifle, right? If you're thinking about all the tools in your toolkit, this is a mage's sniper rifle. Hits hard as fuck, has the longest range of any spell in the game, goes through spell reflect, and is just a monster on the battlefield. When you see that laser beam rip off, you're like, fuck, it's scary, man. When somebody's got their hand up and that red portal's going, they're fucking charging a Kamehameha and they're gonna rip your fucking butthole apart. So I think that's an S tier, right? On my Spiritists, that's something that I can consistently push in a spell, or it kind of checks both boxes. I can consistently push it in a fight and not really feel like I hit the wrong button, and it also completely wins fights if I land it, right? It decimates horses. It's so good. Fulminate into uh, mental proj on a horse, just shreds horses, shreds them. I think mental proj is S tier. I really, really, really like that spell. Um, I don't really care if it's expensive. I've got a lot of money, but some people might. Dispel portal, it's like D tier. It's like C tier, right? So, sometimes you get cheeky assholes that want to like open 5 portals and just harass you. So being able to just get rid of them it's better than not being able to get rid of them, but it's very average. Mental healing. Um, I've used this spell effectively a very handful of times. And I'm, like I said, our sister guild is Red Priest. Like, everybody has this spell. It's very rarely used. It's most of the time it's used in PvE scenarios. We actually used this when Necro Dungeon had just come out because I was the only person that had the necromancy, the zombie skills. We went across the bridge to fight that troll. Well, I could, it wasn't a question of do we have enough people. It was like I don't have enough mana to make these zombies. So my team stood around me, and we call it mana battery. They were my mana batteries, and I made like 26 strongwalkers and killed the troll with it by them just constantly giving me mana back, mana, 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 and I could just keep spamming it. So that was fun. That was cool. This is really good for power leveling spiritism. So if you have an alt on a GeForce Now account, you can or power leveling Necro or any magic school, really, uh, to consistently just give yourself mana. You can use this spell, so it has some utility. It's definitely got more utility than all the other crappy spiritism spells, so we'll put it in B tier. It seems good. All right, now we're getting into Necro. Necro. It's kind of my bread and butter here. I've got a lot of experience running Necro. Lesser Walker. Lesser Walker, people sleep on it, man. They think it's shit. It's super cheap, super mana efficient, super reagent friendly. 1 spirit instead of 3 with a Greater Walker. Costs a Mulge and Bone Tissue. Makeable anywhere, basically. Makeable anywhere. Come out of a portal, mental proj a pig, use your spirit box and the Mulge and the Bone Tissue, and all of a sudden you have a Walker army, right? Come out of a portal, death hand a pig, now you got a Walker army. Fucking slick, right? So like you can do cool stuff with portals. You can do like Necro and Spiritism kind of goes hand in hand. The amount of people that I've seen doing it, like no one, really, like no one's doing it. But people sleep on this spell. As a fat mage, detonate undead. I'll talk about that in a minute. Actually slaps with these guys. Actually slaps. But these guys by themselves, they're actually pretty good, right? You can, as a fat mage with your lore up, you can easily control 7 to 10 of these guys and still maintain your mana pool, which is nuts. You don't really see people doing that. And you can do a lot of bosses with them. You can go do a lot of different PvE content. You can completely take somebody out of the fight with them. But the setup time. They do cast a lot of reagents. If you're doing 10 zombies, that's 20 spirits. That's like almost half a small box. So it's good, but it's not like that good, right? Like it has its moments. just like Outburst. It has its moments, right? It's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Strong Walker is like shittier in every way, I think, right? It's faster, does more damage, so those are good. It doesn't have enough health for people to care, costs more mana to consume, costs more reagents, doesn't really, like, I can't see myself making those over like a lesser or a greater. So I just like, yeah, whatever. C tier. It's very average. I think it's not bad. I wouldn't start going into the D tier, but it's not like above average. Greater Walker. Greater Walker. One downside is it's expensive because it's kind of rare. Only drops in the Necro Dungeon really, and costs a good amount to get it into your book. Costs 3 spirits to make one. Costs another to control it. So 4 spirits per zombie. Costs Incisium, not available everywhere. Sometimes you don't have it on hand. But that's about where the downsides end. I mean, it has a lot of health. I think they have like 300 health or something crazy, like out the bat, or like right out the gate. I guess out the ground, if you think about it. Um, you can't control a ton of them, but you can definitely control 3. 3 is kind of the go-to number for me. And 3 is enough to peel a footy. It makes most footies scared because it chips for, it'll hit a footy for like 10 to 15 damage. And 3 of them can add up pretty quick. They're decently fast, but can't catch up with anybody that's actively kiting them. But at the same time, it completely forces somebody out of the fight. You put it on a mage in the back line at the start of the fight. What I like to do on my mounted mage is control a couple walkers, ride to the back of the enemy line, throw this on a mage, and then they have to either ask a footy to peel for them or run around and cast the whole fight, which is a fucking nightmare. And then I can just forget about them. Like, I don't need to do anything else. They're just going to go handle that mage. And that mage is now out of the fight. So the action economy of these creatures is super high. It's super high. I think these are S tier. These are the best zombie. They just got buffed. They now last, you control them for 15 minutes. You can do different bosses and stuff. I just think they're great. Right? People sleep on them. The downside is the setup time, right? Not having them up and ready to go. I think that they should be under your control when you spawn them. Fuck having to take control of them after you make them. That's just the dumbest design ever. So I hope they make that tweak. They were talking about it. Um, but yeah, I think they're S tier. I think they're really, really good. Command and control. They're clunky as fuck. I don't like them. They say it's like skill-based combat, but the animations don't sync up with the wheel spin. So like, I'll put them in D tier because I have to use them, but I fucking hate them. I think they're garbage. They're just clunky. Okay. The mini game. Oh yeah, remember Henrik's mini game? Oh, if your zombie lore is higher than the other opponent, you can take over their zombies. You know how many times I've done that? I play a lot of Necro. You know, I our guild got server first Necro kill. Like we've done a lot of Necro. I play mage a lot. I've done that stupid minigame one time. One fucking time. And I'm sure the guy was like, what? And that was like memorable because it was the only time I've ever done it, but it's fucking stupid. It's fucking I trash that minigame. Make a better game. But Numb Mind is absolute dog shit. Haven't even bothered to use it in PvE. I think that's the only application for it. You can stop NPCs from casting. Reducing mana regeneration on a player is absolute dog shit. It can be cleansed for one, so you'd have to catch somebody, you'd have to catch a mage that's burned through his mana bar who is trying to get mana back, but also is being pressured by a footy so he can't cleanse and land. Like, who cares? That scenario will literally never come up because that mage isn't even a threat at that point. Like, whoever thought this spell was a good idea was a fucking idiot. Atrophy, 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 atrophy. Um, Atrophy is expensive. It costs 87 points into Necromancy to run. Reagent cost is not that bad. It's a blood and a ash, but it does cost a decent amount of mana. It's basically like a T-Lash. So you have to say, you really have to compare, would I rather do 50 damage to this person, or would I rather completely fuck their stamina? Assuming they can't cleanse it. If it's in the mid fight and they have a decent amount of health still, sometimes that's the play, right? If you're chasing somebody down, that's definitely the play. You're chasing down an Alvera, it's really good. So this is a super situational spell, but in the situations where it's applicable, it totally wins the fight. Totally wins the fight. You put it on an Ogmir or a Thursar, big two-handed boy, mid-fight when they're already low on stam, completely fucks them. Fucks them like in the butt super hard. Like I'll put it in A tier. It wins the fight, but it's not something I'd push every time. It's kind of like a lot of these things. Death Hand, Death Hand, Death Hand, Death Hand. Diph, before I get down to Diff's answers, I know Diph loves this spell. I know this is an S tier for him. I made a stupid video about it, showing him death handing people, and he makes it look fun, but it's been months since the spell came out, and those are like the best clips he's got. So I've tried it, man. I've tried Death Hand. I've tried to make it work in fights. With the concentration buff, it's better than it was. So I'll say it's a lot better than it was, because you're less likely to get interrupted while casting, which honestly happens a lot because you're at point blank range and melee can just lay into you. One thing, because I was looking at it in preparation for talking about this video, one thing a lot of people don't realize is this spell hits as hard as Fulminate. It has the same exact range as Fulminate. So it has the potential to just like RNG devastate people. So, and I've used it to some success with that, right? Death Hand can do some crazy stuff. I think I most recently got dismounted by 2 mounted archers, and they were dumb enough to stay near me on my fat mage, and I was able to death hand both of their horses to death before they killed me, because the sustain is good. It's definitely got its moments. It's really good for running somebody down as a dex mage and death handing them in the back. It's really expensive. The wheel spin animation doesn't line up with how the spell plays out, just like all the necromancy spells. The user interface and the controllability of the spell just feels like shit, right? I can't even think how many times I've been at point blank range with an Ogmir. He's filling up half my damn screen, and for some reason I can't manage to land this spell. And it's like, the dude's not moving, I'm not moving my screen, I don't understand. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it works the right way. I don't know what the deal is. I can't really explain it. And that's the most frustrating part for me. Is it better than Outburst? Yeah, I think it has more utility than Outburst. It hits harder than Outburst. One benefit is it only costs spirits, which is really nice. So you can come out of a portal and use it, like I talked about earlier. It's definitely not something I hit in most scenarios. It's not S tier. Can it win a fight? Yeah, but I'm like almost never hitting it. It's like between B and A, just because Diph will have a fucking heart attack if I put it in B tier. I'll put it in A. Cloud of Ash. Oh, Cloud of Ash. Cloud of Ash is an interesting spell because it has a lot of utility that I think people sleep on. It can completely screw up an enemy mage backline. So a lot of mages like to clump up and just like heal bot. You could take multiple people out of the fight with one Cloud of Ash. You can Cloud of Ash the entire line and back your team up, right? People get annoyed. Like sometimes you have bad Clouds of Ash, right? And it annoys your team, and you get the "Who cast that cloud? Don't ever do that again," right? I've had that several times where I try to get the utility out of it, and it's difficult to land. I think Cloud of Ash will be a lot better when Elementalism comes out, and you can place it where you want it. It'll become a lot more reliable. Right now, it's not very reliable because if you cast it at range, you gotta land the stupid wheel spin animation that all the Necro spells suffer from. If you self-cast it, you blind yourself, and it's just, you can't position it the way you need to. So I think it has potential, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. So I'll put it in C tier. It's very average. It's not useless, but it's also not very great. Miasma. God, Miasma is such a good spell. Miasma, we're going to go ahead and put Miasma in A tier because it does things that no other spell can. It has the highest damage potential for a single button push in the game. I have a clip in my most recent Mage Guide video where I'm wall banging 5 guys in a house with their horses, and it just does a ton of damage. I've had plenty of big fights where I push the button and it fills my entire combat log, right? It can totally swing a fight, but it doesn't fit the category of I push it every fight, or it will devastate. I mean, it does kind of devastate. It's up there. It's up there. The only reason I don't think it's going into S tier is because I think there's a better AoE spell that I'll talk about here in a sec. Akband. Oh, the other downside is it's stupid expensive. It has a terrible reagent, and it is only available through farming the satyrs, which is a nightmare. So it's like 1,200 gold to get the scroll. It's stupid how expensive it is. So that's a huge downside. You also need a good scribe to put it in your book too. So like all around an expensive spell to get and use and like maintain. So that's a huge downside. So not S tier for sure. Akband. Got a huge buff. Is really good at this point. It's a utility spell that I don't think ever will turn the tide of battle, but it's just like a nice buff to have. It's definitely above average. It's B tier now. Putting it on your horse is good. What I've been doing now is on my mounted mage, I'll tame a random horse and just have it following me, and I'll Akband that horse. So now damage isn't going to my main horse; it's going to that random horse behind me. Who cares, right? So generally good, right? If you're like a hybrid, you could put it on your horse, dismount, and now all of a sudden you have this nice health pool at the back of the battlefield soaking damage for you. So it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely a good spell. It's not like insane though. Blind. This is a shitty spell. Blind is E tier. You have to land the stupid wheel spin. It costs too many primary points for what it is. The debuff doesn't last as long. You can see through it. You can fight through it. It's difficult to communicate with your team that somebody is blinded. So oftentimes you'll blind an opponent and your team won't capitalize because they don't know that they're blind, right? You can scream, "He's blinded! He's blinded!" Right? But it's like in the chaos of combat, that gets washed out real quick, right? People just kind of ignore that. So it's just generally a shitty spell. Like nobody's using it, right? Nobody's using it. Mental Leech, same thing. It's not as bad as Benumb, so I'm not putting it in F tier, but it's also really bad. It's way too expensive, costs 100 primary points. This is supposed to be the big kahuna necro spell that it should be worthy of putting 100 primaries in. It's not, right? Costs a BAM to use, so that's a downside. It's mana inefficient, and it's easily cleansable. So I talked about it on my last video, but you can mental leech a mage and preface it with a corrupt. So you corrupt into mental leech into spurt, which you'd think is like, okay, maximum chance to interrupt the target. They can cleanse through it. So you're never going to get more mana than you put into it unless they are a total idiot. The only scenario in which I think it could be useful is if you're a dex mage and you're fighting a mounted mage who is mounted currently, and you can corrupt him, mental leech him, and then spurt him so that he can't get rid of it. And in this imaginary, not going to happen scenario, he can't ride his horse away to just cleanse it. It's a fucking trash spell. Needs massive, shouldn't be cleansable or something. I don't know. Maybe it should just steal it should just like steal twice as much mana as it costs. So, or fuck, get rid of it and turn it into mana burn, right? Like Disc Priest. I'm gonna sacrifice my mana to kill your mana and do a little bit of damage, right? Something like that. I don't know, right? That could make mage fights winnable, right? I don't know, but right now it's a horrible spell. I've tried using it in PvE. I don't even think it works. It's God, it's bad. It could be F tier, but we're gonna Benumb is even worse. uh, all right, this is sacrificial heal. Sacrificial heal. Like nobody's fucking using that. Why would I do that? To sacrifice my pet? The only scenario in which this is useful is I'm wounded. I need my mana back. I'm tired of having my zombies that were expensive to make and contain and hold. So I'm going to sacrifice them to heal myself. Like nobody is taking the risk of casting this mid combat to get a clutch combat heal. Like nobody's doing that. You're just healing. Like nobody's doing it's garbage. Nobody's using this. It's F tier. All Surge. I already alluded to it. I think All Surge is S tier. It's so good. It drops almost every single time from the Necroboss, so it's cheap. The scrolls are easy to obtain. The downside is it costs a lot of Necro points, primary points. It uses Spirits and Dust, which are easily manageable. It's not like it uses ABAM, right? So decent reagent cost. Mana is very expensive, but it is a cone of damage that is directable and self-castable, and it wall bangs. It on my Fat Mage, unless they are ready for it and actively healing themselves, I can kill anybody in their house with this spell. I can kill anybody. And then I can suck their loot out the side with Crawling Hand. It is so good. And I think it's an S tier as well because if you successfully employ this spell in a battle, it can completely decimate the enemy team. Completely decimate them. I have a clip of me with Lourdes. We were in Rizar Dungeon a couple nights ago, and we were pushing down a long hallway against REQ, and they had a lot of people. One Ossurge I counted. I did hit Lourdes, right? So downside is you can hit your team if you're not careful, which I've done plenty of times. But I hit 15 people with this Ossurge. One button push did 700 something damage. That's a lot of that's a lot of damage, right? Generally just an awesome spell. Cool spell effect. Sounds cool. Looks cool. Show off to the noobs. People think it's fucking sick. One of two AoEs. Technically one of 3 or 4 AoEs if you count the explosion in the Cloud of Ash. But one of the 2 main AoE damages in the game. And God, and it hurts, man. You can hit people for like 40 damage with it. Imagine a 2-second cast where you're outbursting everybody in front of you at the same time. And you don't really need to aim it. You just kind of got to like Care Bear stare it. Like it's really fucking good. People sleep on it, man. It's really good. It's really fucking good. Crawling Hands, like good, but it's like resurrection good. It's like quality of life good. It's, when it works, it feels cool. Moving a loot bag from an inaccessible spot feels cool. Pulling loot out of a wall feels so good, man. Feels so good. But, like, let's be real, it's quality of life. It's like solves a problem that the devs haven't solved yet. There's no TC in the game, so it feels better than it should. But being able to Crawling Hands people's loot out of town, right, feels good. Fast cast time. So one benefit of this spell, definitely why it's above average, is it's super mana efficient for what it is, and it costs like 1 blood and 1 bone tissue. So, and it's like middle of the pack with Necro. So if you're power leveling your Necromancy, you can use this spell to go in and out with a trinket. So when you're lower level, use a trinket to go into Crawling Hands, spam it a bunch, take the trinket off, spam it a bunch more, and get a bunch of levels out of Crawling Hands because it's so cheap. It's one of the most cost-efficient ways to level up Necro. It's also a 1-second cast, so it's really good for that. You can also catch people off guard. So it pulls loot bags that you can't even see yet. So even if you didn't get the last hit. So if you know someone's going to die and you don't want their bag to get looted immediately, you can stand by and time it so that your Crawling Hands goes off right when they bag, and you pull the bag even though it's not visible. And then some people don't have enough time to react most of the time. And if you time it right, you can stop people from looting stuff, which is cool. Last spell, Sacrificial Explosion, Eruption, whatever. People sleep on that spell. It's really good in combo with the Lesser Walker, because it doesn't matter what type of walker they are. The damage on this spell scales off of your intellect, and it scales off of the cast of the spell itself. So let's say you blow up 3 walkers, it's going to do the same damage for each walker. And I've got clips of me blowing people up where, oh my God, it's just the memes, right? I should put this in S tier just for the memes, man. Like, blowing somebody up is hilarious. I hit a Thursar 3 days ago, outside of Fab with just the lesser walkers for 70 damage a walker, man. 70, that's like hitting him with 3 or 4 flame strikes at once. It's just instantly evaporates them. And the explosion sounds cool, it looks cool. They're just gone, right? I'll put it in B tier. I think, it's such a meme. Like, I'll give it B simply for the memes. It's really a C tier spell. So, anyways, that's my tier list. That's kind of how I think, how I rationalize. I know some of these will be up for debate. Some people hate on Fulmination. Like, people fucking hate on Fulminate. They think it's fucking like D tier or something. So let's scroll down and we'll look at Diff's answers and then we can compare. So go ahead and take that away. Oh, sorry. All right, so let's compare here. I'm just kind of lining up my OBS. I use Photoshop for this, so it's nothing. It's not like the smoothest thing. Okay, cool. Okay, so we line up on T-Lash. Cool. We line up on Spell Reflect. Wow, he put Crawling Hands in S tier. That's interesting. Like, he must, I don't know, he must really, really like looting loot bags. Maybe, Diph, are you poor, dude? What's the deal, man? Are you poor? Let's see. Lesser heal. Greater heal's not. Oh, wow. He's got greater heal all the way down in B tier. Interesting. I wonder why that is. Like, it's less mana efficient for sure, but like the throughput is pretty nutty. Maybe because he plays nothing but Dex Mage. So I can understand you don't want to use the mana on a Dex Mage, but he plays like a fat Dex Mage. So I don't know. It's a little weird. That's really low on the list. B tier? So let's look at my S tier. So I got the heals up there. He's got lesser heal in S. Great. Reflect in S. Mental Proj he put in A. I mean, we're pretty much lined up on that. Like, you can make good arguments for why Mental Proj is not S tier. Greater Walker. Where did he put Greater Walker? He just lazily put them all into B tier. That just seems like they're not the same spell. They're not equivalent in value and utility. So it seems weird to put them all in the same tier. That just seems like laziness. Awe Surge. Where did you put Awe Surge? A tier. Okay. Like, sure. You can make an argument for it to be an A tier. We're pretty lined up on that. Spurt, same. Good. Flame Strike. Or so his Fulminate. Where did he put Fulminate? He put it all the way down in C tier. You just might not see the same value I do. That's fine. Like, a lot of people have different playstyles, for sure. Purify. Where did he put that in S tier? He must hit Purify like every fight. Diph, I'll say 2 things. I'll say first, Diph is a really good mage. He knows what's up. Second, I never see Diph playing by himself anymore. He's in a really good guild, right? Nightfall, a bunch of really good PvPers. Um, so he doesn't go out by himself. He doesn't really play solo. So I can understand thinking that Corrupt is S tier. If you're using it every fight, it's really a team fight button, right? You can pretty much find value in almost every fight using the if you're going out with nothing but teams, you know. So I can understand that being an S tier. I mean, it's one away from me. I put it in A. Um, let's see, his F tier. He only put Ether Momentum in F tier. Like, I put that in D tier. I admittedly don't use Spiritism too much. Ether Barrier, yeah, both agree that those are garbage. Spiritism is pretty garbage. Yeah, like our Spiritism is actually pretty lined up. Like, I think we kind of have the same view on that. Flame Strike, he put in C. I put in, or he put that in A tier. Yeah, he really likes Flame Strike. It's interesting. God, most people just give up on Flame Strike. Most people don't even run it. So it's interesting that he thinks it's so good. Mental Leech as a C tier? Has he even used it? Okay. That one's really weird to me. Like, Mental Leech and C tier, that needs to be reevaluated, bud. Sorry. Akbon, B tier as well. Benumb Mind. How is that not an F tier? Yeah, I mean, by and large, on like the big ticket stuff that people actually care about, we're decently lined up, right? I think we disagree about the quality of Greater Heal. I thought the same way he did for a long time. I've only recently kind of come around to the Greater Heal lifestyle, and it's because I'm fat and I have a lot of mana now. I think that's kind of like where I'm seeing the value. We don't line up on Death Hand. He thinks it's better than I do. Yeah. Anyways, this has been fun. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of a long form video. I'll, yeah, and my little Easter egg. Thanks, guys.